Its suffering. You can tyrannize yourself into doing things, but I wouldn't recommend it. What I would recommend instead is that you ask yourself what you're willing to do.
Hey,
it's a really effective technique. It's like a meditative technique. That's when life is worthwhile.
What's happening, guys? I'm just doing some streaming. Thought people might enjoy it.
I don't know exactly what's going to help you, but don't arbitrarily throw out any possibilities because you might not have that luxury. Antidepressants help a lot of people, and there are technical reasons why that's the case. If you're offered a gift by your society and it works, try it. I don't care what your presuppositions are. The time you see people who are suffering with depression, for example, there's a multitude of reasons, but I'll take one common reason. You can think about it as associated with the story of Peter Pan. Peter Pan is someone who won't grow up, right? Now the problem with Peter Pan is he gets to be king, but it's king of Neverland. Neverland doesn't exist. So being king of nothing isn't that helpful. Well, one of the things that you often see with people who suffer from depression, and I'm not making a blanket statement about the cause of depression because there's lots of them, is that people who don't have enough order in their life tend to get overwhelmed. So for example, if someone comes into me to see me and they say they're depressed, I always ask them a very standard set of questions. Do you have a job? If you don't have a job, you're really in trouble in our society. First of all, your biological rhythms tend to go off the rails right away because there's no reason to go to bed at any particular time and there's no reason to get up. And for many people, if they don't get up at the same time, they foul up the functioning of their circadian rhythms, and that's enough to make them depressed right off the bat, especially if they start napping during the afternoon. They also don't have a purpose. People aren't good without a purpose, and this isn't hypothesizing. We absolutely understand the circuitry that underlies positive emotion. When you're attending to something you're interested in and you're engaged in it, that's when you're alive. That's when life is worthwhile. It's so worthwhile that in those moments you don't even ask the question about it. The question itself goes away because the meaning that you're united with is so powerful that it can push back the adversity that would otherwise characterize life. Nietzsche said, the person who has a why can bear any how. We know how it works. Almost all the positive emotion that any of you are likely to experience in your life will not be a consequence of attaining things. It will be a consequence of seeing that things are working as you proceed towards a goal you value. That's completely different, and you need to know this because people are often stunned. For example, they finish their PhD thesis and their presupposition is that they're going to be elated for a month, and often instead they're actually depressed, and they think,
Self-image is good.
7 years.
What's wrong with it?
Handed it in, and what do I do now? And that's what depresses them, right? It's the what do I do now? Well, they're fine if they enjoyed it, pursuing the thing. As long as it was working out, they get a lot of enthusiasm and excitement out of that because that's how our nervous systems work. Most of your positive emotion is goal pursuit emotion. If you take drugs like cocaine or amphetamine, the reason they're enjoyable is because they turn on the systems that help you pursue goals.
Oh, thanks, man.
That's why people like them. So if you don't have a job, you got no structure, that's not good. Plus, you tend not to have a point.
Almost done.
So you're overwhelmed by
just tuning this
lack of
bad boy.
structure, and you don't have any positive
Getting it
emotion.
neat. It's a tricky one, that's for sure. It's a weird subject matter, so.
Assuming you want to get better, there's usually something you can figure out that would constitute a step towards some sort of concrete goal. And my presumption, it's a behavioral presumption fundamentally, is that small accruing gains that repeat are unbelievably powerful. You can tyrannize yourself into doing things, but I wouldn't recommend it. What I would recommend instead is that you ask yourself what you're willing to do. It's a really effective technique. It's like a meditative technique. So for example, you can get up in the morning and you can think, well, you know, I'd like to have a good day today, so I'd like to go to bed tonight without feeling guilty because I, didn't do some things I said I was going to do, and I'd like to have kind of an interesting day. So you've got to fulfill my responsibilities, and I want to, enjoy the day. Then you can ask yourself, well, what would I have to do in order for that to happen that I would do? And the probability, if you practice this for 3 or 4 days, is your brain will just tell you. It'll say, well, you know, there's that piece of homework that you haven't done for like 3 weeks. You should knock that sucker off because it would only take you 10 minutes and you've been avoiding it and torturing yourself to death for 72 hours straight. And say, well, let's figure out what your aims are. You've got to have some aims, whatever they are. And they might say, well, I'm so depressed I don't have any aims. And then I say, well, pick the least objectionable of the aims and act it out for a while and see what happens. Because sometimes your emotional systems are so fouled up that you have to pretend, you have to act the thing out before you can start to believe it. Life can be meaningful enough to justify its suffering. I thought, God, that's such a good idea. Because it's not optimistic exactly. You know, some people will tell you, well, you can be happy. It's like, those people are idiots. I'm telling you, they're idiots. There's going to be things that come along that flatten you so hard you won't believe it. And you're not happy then. And so if life is to be happy, well, in those situations, what are you doing? Why even live? But life isn't to be happy. If you're happy, you're bloody fortunate, and you should enjoy it. You should, because it's the grace of God, so to speak. People know when they're
probably
doing
be able to
something
get away
meaningful.
with
They can tell,
Blender.
so why the hell don't they do meaningful things
Blender would
all
do.
the time? It seems obvious. You could do it.
I wouldn't-
It's hard.
I wouldn't
You know,
say
'cause
you
other
need
people want you to do
exercise,
other
but
things, and it's a struggle. But
I like
everything's a
it
struggle.
because it's just easy to use.
Oh, I get it. I see why.
What
It
I
took me
like.
about 10 years to figure this out. People have a choice. Choice number 1. Nothing you do means anything. Well, it's kind
I
of
thought
a
I'd give
drag,
YouTube
right?
a go.
Meaninglessness of life and all that existential angst.
I don't know,
You know, that's
Twitch
kind of
doesn't
a pain.
seem like a
But the
place to
upside
stream.
of nothing that you do is meaningful
Like, it
is
seems
you don't have to do anything.
doesn't seem like
You've got
a
no
place good for
responsibility. Now, you
streaming
have to suffer
or
because
art,
things are meaningless,
to be
but
honest.
that's a small price to pay.
I'd rather stream on my channel.
The alternative
Seems better.
is everything
I
you
don't know.
do matters.
I'm still
Really,
deciding
if you make a mistake,
to do with
it's
all
a real
that.
mistake. If you betray someone, you tilt the world a little more sharply towards evil rather than good. It matters what you do. Well, if you buy that, then you can have a meaningful life. But there's no mucking around. It means responsibility.
Oh, I
it means that
shouldn't
the
have
decisions
edited
you
this
make are
mesh
important. It means that when
after
you
the fact.
do something wrong, it's wrong. Well,
It's a
do you want
pain.
that?
Gotta do it. I didn't prep it enough. Let's see what we get. Yeah, that ass.
You know, if you take people, then you expose them voluntarily to things that they are avoiding and are afraid of, you know, that they know they need to overcome in order to meet their goals, their self-defined goals. If you can teach people to stand up in the face of the things they're afraid of, they get stronger. And you don't know what the upper limits to that are, because you might ask yourself, like, if for 10 years, if you didn't avoid doing what you knew you needed to do, what would you be like? Well, you know, there are remarkable people who come into the world from time to time, and there are people who do find out over decades-long periods
I might use
what they
Blender to
could
render.
be like if they were who they were,
This one,
if they spoke their being forward.
I want
And
to
they
get
get
someone
stronger and
if they can
stronger and
rig it for
stronger.
me
We
too.
don't know the limits to
I want
that.
to
We
render
do
it
not know the
in
limits to
Blender
that.
and do some rigging for it. It'd be fun.
Probably running at about 51% of our capacity. Something, I mean, you can think about this yourselves. I often ask undergraduates how many hours a day you waste or how many hours a week you waste. And the classic answer is something like 4 to 6 hours a day. You know, inefficient studying, watching things on YouTube that not only do you not want to watch, that you don't even care about, that make you feel horrible about watching after you're done. That's probably 4 hours right there. You know, you think, well, that's 25 hours a week, it's 100 hours a month, that's 2.5 full work weeks, it's half a year of work weeks per year. And so if your life isn't everything it could be, you could ask yourself, well, what would happen if you just stopped wasting the opportunities that are in front of you? You'd be, who knows how much more efficient? 10 times more efficient, 20 times more efficient. That's the Pareto distribution. You have no idea how efficient people get. It's it's off the charts. It's not so obvious to me that people would take the meaningful path. Now when you say, well, nihilists suffer dreadfully because there's no meaning in their life and they still suffer, yeah, but the advantage is they have no responsibility. So that's the payoff, and I actually think that's the motivation. Say, well, I can't help being nihilistic, all my belief systems have collapsed. It's like, yeah, maybe. Maybe you've just allowed them to collapse because it's a hell of a lot easier than acting them out. And the price you pay is some meaningless suffering, but you can always whine about that and people will feel sorry for you.
Oh, this didn't work out.
If you live a pathological life, you pathologize your society. And if enough people do that, then it's hell. Really, really.
I don't think this mesh will work. The shape's a little bit funny. That's so good.
You're asked to outline the place you'd like to end up, which is your desired future, and also the place that you could end up if you let everything fall apart, is so that your anxiety chases you and your approach systems pull you forward. You're maximally motivated then. And it's important because otherwise you can be afraid of pursuing the things that you want to pursue, right? And that's very common. And so then the fear inhibits you as the promise pulls you forward, but it makes you weak because you're afraid. You want to get your fear behind you, pushing you. And so what you want to be is more afraid of not pursuing your goals than you are of pursuing them. Putting yourself in a challenging mind frame is much easier on you psychophysiologically because you don't go into the generalized stress response to the same degree. And you're activating your exploratory and seeking systems, which are dopaminergically mediated and that involve positive emotion. So if you can face something voluntarily rather than having it chase you, it's way better for you psychophysiologically. So that's partly why, well, it's worthwhile to go find the dragon in its lair instead of waiting for it to come and eat you. So, and especially when you also add the idea that if you go find the dragon in its lair, you might find it when it's a baby instead of a full-fledged bloody monster that is definitely going to take you down. Don't avoid small problems that you know are there. Face them, because they'll grow into big problems all by themselves. And you can think about, imagine the tax department sends you a notification. You owe them like $300. Well, it's, you know, that's annoying. Maybe you don't even want to open the letter. Or maybe if you do, you just put it on the shelf. But that damn thing doesn't just sit there like a piece of paper on the shelf, right? You ignore that for 5 or 6 years, it's going to become attached to all sorts of horrible things. And if you ignore it long enough, you get the idea. It's going to turn into something that is completely unlike the little piece of paper that it's written on. And many, many problems in life are like that. You'll see that they pop their ugly little head up, and you know, and you might want to turn away. You might not want to think about it, which is the easiest way of turning away, right? You just don't attend to it. You know, if you could have your life the way you wanted it in 3 to 5 years, if you were taking care of yourself properly, you know, what would you want from your friendships? What would you want from your intimate relationship? How would you like to structure your family? What do you want for your career? Well, how are you going to use your time outside of your job? And how are you going to regulate your mental and physical health, and maybe also your drug and alcohol use? Because that's a good place to auger down, you know, because alcoholism, for example, wipes out, you know, 5 to 10% of people. So you want to keep that under control. And then, so maybe you develop a vision of what you would like your life to be, and that associates the goal, well, once the goal is established, and then you break down the goal into micro processes that you can implement. The micro processes become rewarding in relation to their causal association with the goal, and that tangles in your incentive reward system, and that's the thing that keeps you moving forward. And the way it works is that it works better if it produces positive emotion when it can see you moving towards a valued goal. Okay, well, what's the implication of that? Better have a valued goal, because otherwise you can't get any positive motivation working out. And so the more valuable the goal, in principle, the more the micro processes associated with that goal start to take on a positive charge. And so what that means is, well, you get up in the morning and you're excited about the day, you're ready to go. And so as far as I can tell, what you do is you specify your long-term ideal, maybe you also specify a place you want to stay the hell away from so that you're terrified to fail as well as excited about succeeding, because that's also useful. You specify your goal.
Hey, that.
You do that in some sense as a unique individual. You want to specify goals that make you say, oh, if that could happen as a consequence of my efforts, it would clearly be worthwhile. Because the question always is, why do something? Because doing nothing is easy. You just sit there and you don't do anything. That's real easy. The question is, why would you ever do anything? And the answer to that has to be because you've determined by some means that it's worthwhile. Number one, specify your damn goals, because how are you going to hit something if you don't know what it is? That isn't going to happen. And often people won't specify their goals too because they don't like to specify conditions for failure. So if you keep yourself all vague and foggy, which is real easy because that's just a matter of not doing as well, then you don't know when you fail. And people might say, well, I really don't want to know when I fail because that's painful. So I'll keep myself blind about when I fail. That's fine, except you'll fail all the time then. You just won't know it until you've failed so badly that you're done. Okay, so once you get your goal structure set up, you think, okay, if I could have this life, looks like that might be worth living, despite the fact that it's going to be, you know, anxiety provoking and threatening, and there's going to be some suffering and loss involved and all of that. Obviously, the goal is to have a vision for your life such that, all things considered, that justifies your effort. Okay, so then what do? Well, then you turn down to the micro routines. It's like, okay, well, this is what I'm aiming for. How does that instantiate itself day to day, week to week, month to month? And that's where something like a schedule can be unbelievably useful. Google Calendar. It's like, make a damn schedule and stick to it. Okay, so what's the rule with the schedule? It's not a bloody prison. That's the first thing that people do wrong. They say, well, I don't like to follow a schedule. It's like, well, what kind of schedule are you setting up? Well, I have to do this, then I have to do this, then I have to do this, you know, and then I just go play video games, because who wants to do all these things that I have to do? It's like, wrong. Set the damn schedule up so that you have the day you want. What's the right ratio of responsibility to reward? And you can ask yourself that, just like you'd negotiate with someone who is working for you. It's like, okay, you got to work tomorrow. Okay, so I want you to work tomorrow. And you might say, okay, well, what are you going to do for me that makes it likely that I'll work for you?
I don't know. I think I might have been.
Well, you could ask yourself that. You know?
I haven't tallied up
do
how
an
long
hour
I've spent on this one
responsibility,
yet.
and then you play a video game for 15 minutes. I don't know, whatever turns your crank, man. But you know, you have to negotiate with yourself and not tyrannize yourself. Like you're negotiating with someone that you care for, that you would like to be productive and have a good life, and that's how you make the schedule. It's like, and then you look at the day and you think, well, if I had that day, that'd be good. Great. You know, and you're useless and horrible, so you'll probably only hit it with about 70% accuracy.
Not
but
sure.
that beats the hell out of zero.
Have to see.
Right, and if you hit it even with 50%
but this stuff's
accuracy,
not easy. It's not.
Another rule is, well, aim for 51% the next
hard,
week, or 50.5%
so
for God's sake, or because
there's no
you're going to hit that
way of
position
doing
where
it.
things start to loop back positively and spiral you upward.
There's only so much.
So that's one way that you can work on your conscientiousness, is plan a life you'd like to have.
I did mess up a little bit on this one.
Another way you do that is by having a little conversation with yourself.
But I probably spent
as if you don't really know who you are, because you know what you're like. You won't do what you're told.
You
won't do what you tell yourself to do. You must have noticed
not
that.
Too bad, given
it's like you're a bad employee and a worse boss, and both of those work, you know, for you.
There's always a bad way to model sub-D stuff, so people can. You don't want to be tweaking this mesh.
You don't know what you want to do, and then when you tell yourself what to do, you don't do it anyways. You should fire yourself and find someone else to be. But you know, my point is that you have to understand that you're not your own servant, so to speak. You're someone that you have to negotiate with, and you're someone that you want to
I do probably
present
like
the
10-hour
opportunity
days,
of having a
12.
good life to. And that's hard for
Maybe
people because they don't
14.
like themselves very much. So, you know, they're always like cracking the whip and then procrastinating and cracking the whip and then procrastinating. And it's like, God, it's so boring and such a pathetic way of spending your
Yeah,
time.
there's a
And
voice,
you know
I'm
what that's
listening to
like, 'cause
something.
you probably waste like 6 hours a day. And I think we did an economic calculation about that a while back, right? Your time's probably worth $50 an hour, something like that. I mean, you're not getting paid that now, but you're young, and so this is investment time, and what you do now is going to multiply its effects in the future. So let's say it's $50 an hour, which is perfectly reasonable. So if you waste 6 hours a day, and you are, then you're wasting about $2,000 a week, or about
turn it off.
$2,000 a year. So like, go ahead, but that's what it's costing you every hour. And you need to know what your damn time is worth.
If you guys aren't
Six
doing
hours,
10-hour days,
30.
you shouldn't be in this
Maybe
industry.
It's 100. It's somewhere in that range. One of the things you should be asking yourself is, when you spend an hour, was that, well, what if I paid someone
If you haven't
$50
conditioned
for
yourself
half
to
an hour?
work at least
And
10
the
hours in the
answer is
day,
no. It's like, well, maybe you should do something else with your time.
you shouldn't be
And
freelancing.
it depends on whether or not
That's
you
my
think
honest
that your time's
opinion.
worthwhile. But the funny thing about
'Cause
not assuming that,
If you want to get paid a certain
is
amount as well, you need to work around the
what happens is
clock.
you don't just sit around sort of randomly
This is
instinctive
like everything.
responsibility
If you want to
is
achieve your
bliss.
things in life, you
What
gotta
you do
work.
is you suffer existentially.
You gotta work,
That seems
work,
like a
and work,
stupid
and work,
solution.
and work, and work. 10 hours in a day isn't as bad as you think. Once you get up to like 7 and 8, you can get through it. Just take breaks, meditate between your absolute urges to procrastinate. If you feel like you really need to procrastinate, don't procrastinate. Like, it's weird. I'm surprised you're not working more for
Someone
freelancing.
that you treat well, that you love.
They say there's no such thing as procrastination. It's just you getting tired, I believe.
Okay, well, I'm a
So,
person among other people.
if
and
you
I
get
deserve
tired,
just as much respect as a person among other people. And
you just
I
got to
should be
take a
trying to
break.
help myself
Meditate.
across time.
Do
Instead of
something
being
else, go for a walk.
self-contemptuous and self-destructive. I need to
You should be able to work
take care of
indefinitely.
myself, as if I'm potentially
Like,
valuable,
until you're falling
lay out
asleep.
my life that way.
There's no need
And so
that
that's what that chapter
you're
is about.
capping out at any time.
It's hard for people.
If you want to achieve stuff in life, you can't cap out. There's no cap on your
You know, take care of yourself.
how long you want to work. There's no cap. You have to imagine
It's not a moralistic
you're unlimited in your capacity, because if you're not,
encouragement to
you're not going to achieve a goddamn
give
thing.
yourself a bit of the benefit of the doubt. Take care of your room.
No,
take care of your
the real
family.
goals that you really want in life, you're not going to achieve them.
For yourself, it's like you are. There is a lot of potential.
No one's gonna
opportunity.
hand you
There's
things.
many things that you can do, and you're necessary
You need to go and find things.
more than you think to the unfold.
You need to chase.
Like if you make a bunch
You need
of
to
bad
drive
decisions,
yourself.
things get worse. Not just for you. Like things get worse. And so it matters what you do. And so part of what you do is you want to treat yourself as if what you do matters. And so you want to have some respect for yourself.
Yeah, if you have a shitty diet, you're not going to get very far. What do I do for this? Maybe I can do like a light in the back there. Or maybe it could be like an air intake, but I think this is kind of like air intake. I got a better idea for this
Young
thing.
people like to think about ways
I actually
to
don't
change the
like
world,
it.
right? And that's actually a positive part of their
I've been
development.
hating
It's a stage
this thing
that
here.
developmental psychologist Jean Piaget called the messianic
I'm hating
stage,
it.
and he associated that with late adolescence. While young people want to change the world, the problem
let's
is
see
that
if I've got the
that's
original.
harnessed into attempts to change other people.
How much
That's
polish?
what you should do. If you want to change the world, you should change
It all
yourself.
depends. I'm huge. Oh, thanks,
In the
Dan.
sense that Alexander Solzhenitsyn said when he analyzed the Soviet
I'm sure you're
Union,
getting massive too.
don't be thinking that the line that divides good
I am
and
thickening
evil
up now,
runs
going
down
back to the gym.
political spectrum
which
or-
is good.
Or countries or something like that. It runs down
How you been, man?
down the middle of your soul. And if you want to sort out the world, then what you do is you sort yourself out. It's a serious business.
is say.
Yeah, if you can get more productive in the 8 hours, I'd do it.
Because you're competent.
I break up my day, so I'm pretty productive.
And to be brought into
If I'm
submission, so that you can be a powerful and useful person.
if I'm taking breaks,
Out there to change the world,
I lied down for 30 minutes. So if I'm taking those breaks, I get refreshed and I can go for another 3 hours. Oh, there goes exercise.
Fully articulated the memory. You haven't
Would we
analyzed it
lose?
properly. You haven't freed yourself from its grasp, and you're carrying it like a weight. And your brain responds to that. Like the more weight you're carrying like that, more baggage, let's say, the more of the stress hormone cortisol your brain produces, and cortisol makes you old. Divide your life up into 6 epochs, and then divide each of those. That might be, say, birth to kindergarten, and then maybe elementary school, and then.
Hopefully I didn't lose too much work. I bet you I did.
And then to write about
I think I did.
emotionally significant events in each of those epochs.
I was saving a lot.
And then to describe their effects on you.
Yeah,
And to
here we go.
analyze how you did in those situations, what you might have done
Thank-
differently, what you might do differently in the future.
That's what you do. You save like a madman. I didn't lose too much. Yay! Watch me do the same thing again. All right. Always save. Beat OCD with your saving.
If you're thinking about your past, what it means is you haven't analyzed the cause of change. Because you might say, well, why do you remember your past? Well, you might say, well, it's in order to have an objective, record of the past. It's like it has nothing to do with that. There's only one reason you remember the past, and that's to be prepared for the future. That's why you remember the past. And so what you're supposed to do is take the past and extract out from it wisdom. And wisdom is the ability to avoid stumbling blindly into ditches. Here's a time in my past I stumbled blindly into this horrible ditch and terrible things happened to me. You need to take that apart. You need to figure out how was it that events conspired with your participation, voluntarily or involuntarily, so that terrible consequence emerged. You need to know why that happened and how you could react differently in that situation. And as soon as you do that, your brain will leave it alone. You won't obsess
Be
about
clean.
it anymore, because the anxiety-producing parts of your brain are basically trying to tell you where there are obstacles in your environment. Don't go there, there's fire. If you could master the fire, right, then you're a wielder of fire, you're not just a victim. And lots of situations are dangerous or not dangerous depending on your level of mastery, right? Life is like that. And so a negative emotion that's associated with a memory is something that's crying out for mastery, and writing can really help with that. You're reorganizing your brain when you write autobiographically. Imagine emotion, memories can be stored at different levels of your brain.
Ah, thanks, man.
Sort of primordial
Yeah, this lower part wasn't too great.
Very emotional,
Of
finely articulated plan.
It's a very fine balance because I'm trying to
Everything that's negative and emotional,
trying to not make it
transform that into a full
too much of a joke. Serious.
for your future, and that frees you of your past. You shouldn't be thinking about your past. I mean, maybe if you're 80 and you're going over a well-spent life, that's a little different thing. But if you're 30, 35, or 20, and most of the time you're thinking about your past, it's like
What did I do
your
different?
soul is trapped back there. You need to free it through investigation. And the metaphysical language is appropriate, because that is, in a sense, what you're doing. You're trapped in the past. It's like you've got to break free of that so you can use all your resources to move ahead into the future.
This is not working now. What did I do different? It's like sometimes you do work and then you don't know how you got to the result. Keep pressing the wrong button. Is that it? Nah, doesn't look right. Did something. Totally worked before. What's going on with this mesh? It must have flattened out. I've done that. It is finicky, finicky, finicky. Smoothing groups are messing me up. I really didn't want to have to redo this part. I got it perfect. It's like when you get a part perfect, you're like, yeah, just stay there for me. You don't want to bugger them up. Like, it's such a odd shape. Gotta get it nice. Alright. Hey Aiden, you gotta be polite, man. What's this wankers thing? Yeah, I'm trying to see what I did. I didn't really do anything complicated before last time to achieve this shape. Came out pretty sweet last time. Let me do it again. I just have to square up that edge. Maybe it'll work this time. Let's have a look, see. No. I always forget to use marquees. Alright. It's just this one. The creasing will have to be set from here to here. Then like so. Once I just imagined it. And this one. I'll fix up. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. I'll fix up a little pinching there. That's just kind of what I wanted. And then I had to do this part again. I'll probably extrude it from here. Butt dimples. Yeah, I might do those. I could do something like here. It will let me do it. You should. I don't know why the geometry just vanished. Might be too many sides. Yep. There we go. I don't know if that would be a good spot. How's that look? Looks a bit funny there. Maybe. I gotta... Where is the back dimple? Here's my anatomy. Get him around here. Right here. So... I got it in the right spot. I think I gotta just assess it differently. Oh, thanks, Akash. Could be the fact that I can't really rotate this one. I have to just be like this. If I... Oh, I should start. I have to make maybe a really fancy butt dimple. My brain's a bit tired at the moment. And I'll have to flatten that out. But I might just put it as a placeholder until I get to it. I think that works. I just have to. I think I have to use an even bigger one. It's not enough. It's not enough dimple. But the thing is, it has to be consistent with maybe. Well, this one is kind of a funny one. Is that working? Let me just mirror this. I'll have a look. Kind of works from a distance. Yeah. I think once it has the texture on it, then I'll be doing this stuff in Moi on the top, which I'm still a little bit rusty with Moi, but I'll get up to speed pretty quickly. I'm pretty efficient with it. Maybe just make it bigger, it won't break the mesh too much. Because I need to keep I have to keep all this neat because it will be converted to different geometry, so I'm going to kind of tailor it in there. The funds of sub-D modeling. I think that's working. Generally. I should save a new one. I gotta figure out a cool bolt detail. I don't know if I've got one that would these are all pretty hardcore bolts. They're pretty standard. I don't know, my brain's like, I could just do a real basic bolt. Boring one. I wonder if that's flat. It just matters about the bolt. Well, let's do this. Make it catch some lights. I should always try and angle things. Get that light to catch. And then maybe I can kind of like do a real fancy one. I don't know if I'll make it go in like a dimple, but then I'll have to I'll do disconnect all this geometry. This is not good geometry. This is all messy. What do I want to do with this? I know what to do. I'll leave it there. I'll put new geometry on top. I don't know if I'll leave it like that. Maybe I'll just do something real basic. I need to create a new cylinder. Maybe I can do like some weird sensor thing that sticks out. That might be cool. Maybe like that. Do those manga things. But the thing would have to be way bigger. Might not have to be. Let's see. This is like manga style. This is what manga is. These things sticking out. Let's see what would be the point of me adding this thing. Wank factor. There's a wank factor to me. It's like that. Yeah. Look at that. It looks stupid. Looks stupid. I didn't design dumb stuff like that. Well, I consider it dumb. If it offended anyone, I'm sorry. I just think it's dumb to have things kind of protruding out. It's good in anime, but not for a serious design. If you didn't want to like a serious... Well, this is semi-serious. Semi-serious design. So... I know it's... I don't like to do that stuff. It's not my flavor. Subdivided this wrong. Maybe I can just work with this mesh. That seems alright. I'll just leave that thing like that. Be inspired by the mesh. There we go. It's kind of cool. Too much. Alright. That was suggested by Eden. You have forever changed this design. You ruined it, Eden. You ruined by adding a butt dimple. Possibly. No, you didn't. I'm joking. One man can't change his design like that. You've made it better anyway. Every female needs a butt dimple, but that doesn't happen. It's the fantasy to you have someone with a butt dimple, with bum dimples. They're like unicorns. Not everyone has them. Well, I don't even know why I compared that to a unicorn. The wrong analogy. You know what I mean. Alright. Pull this back. Things are gonna line up. Alright. No, that's alright. Panel gaps, yeah. I had Tesla had some panel gaps, right? I heard they did. But then someone else said they didn't. There's lots of panel gaps. I need to pull that out completely. Well, I'm going to pull it down. I must round the buttocks area. Well, it's not me wanting to pay attention to it, but I have to. Otherwise, the panel gaps will be there, and the quality will be lowered. You know, it's like panel spacing is really important. How big you make one bolt is really important. So many things that are super important that people get wrong when they're designing things. It's like you just screwed up. Pretty much, but then you can't be too obsessive because then you never finish the thing. But your attention to detail will show. That's something that you should know. Attention to detail, highly important. If your attention is in fairyland, you're not paying attention, then you gotta get your head out your ass, put it into the design. No, that's fine. I wonder what I did last time for this part. Can't remember. What did I do? It wasn't that. I think it was just it was like a light. Yeah, come on. I thought I did a different design back here when I lost. I had a crash. Can't remember now. Or something. I couldn't get. I'm not sure if anyone used XI here. There's a keep script. I want to get a keep script. This extract. I'm pretty sure I've tried setting it up before. It wouldn't work. I want to have it hooked up to a hotkey.
Econix wants to know, why do you think we find scaled down miniature things so appealing?
Gratitude filled my eyes. I knew I was the luckiest man in Babylon. Worked, thou see, by this, in the time of my greatest distress, didst prove to be my best friend. My willingness to work enabled me to escape from being sold to join the slave gangs upon the walls. It also so impressed thy grandfather, he selected me for his partner. Then Hayden Gula questioned, was work my grandfather's secret key to the golden shekels? It was the only key he had when I first knew him, Sharunada replied. Thy grandfather enjoyed working. The gods appreciated his efforts and rewarded him liberally. I begin to see, Hayden Gula was speaking thoughtfully.
I use
Work attracted as many friends who
I use
admired
ZBrush
his
to do
industry
base
and
shapes.
the success it brought. Work brought him the honors he enjoyed so much in Damascus. Work brought him all those things I had.
Yeah, I've looked at
approved.
Rocket. It's
I thought
I sat
work was
down
fit
a
only for
while
slaves.
using it. It's
Life is rich with many pleasures from men.
it's
to
good,
enjoy,
but it's
Sharonada commented.
just
Each
like
has its place. I
don't know,
glad
like-
that work is not reserved for slaves.
it's a little bit buggy.
Were that the
And then it
case,
has
I would be deprived
the
of
slowdown,
my greatest pleasure.
Like the fact that it's slow.
Many things do I enjoy.
I probably wouldn't even be able to
Nothing
model
takes the
this
place of work.
in Rocket without it slowing down. So
Sharonada and Hayden Gula rode in the shadows of the towering walls up to the massive bronze gates of Babylon. At their approach, the gate guards jumped to attention and respectfully saluted an honored citizen. With head held high, Sharonada
I've
led
just
the
used
long
Blender, to be
caravan
honest.
through the gates and up the streets of the city.
it's free. It's there.
I have always hoped to be a man like my grandfather, Hayden Gula confided to him. Never before did I realize just what kind of man he was.
I want to sort
This
what this I
thou
want
hast
to do in this
shown me.
area.
Now that I understand, I do admire
can I
him
do?
all the more
I don't like
and
it.
feel more determined to be like him. I fear I can never repay thee for giving me the true key to his
I want to do
success.
something like
From this day
ventilation.
forth, I shall use his key. I shall start
Something that looks
humbly
right
as he
here.
started, which befits my true station far better than jewels and fine robes. So saying, Hayden Gula pulled the jeweled baubles from his ears and the rings from his fingers. Then, reining his horse, he dropped back and rode with deep respect behind the leader of the caravan. Chapter 11. An historical sketch of Babylon. In the pages of history, there lives no city more
that'll
glamorous
work.
than Babylon. Its very name conjures visions of wealth and splendor. Its treasures of gold and jewels were fabulous. One naturally
Keep
pictures
bloody using
such a
the
wealthy city as
wrong
located
button.
in a suitable
Yeah,
setting
it
of
works.
tropical luxury, surrounded by rich
So-
natural resources of forests and mines. Such was not the case.
Okay.
It was located
What can we
beside the
do?
Euphrates River in a flat, arid valley. It had no forests, no mines, not even stone for building.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
cool.
not even located
Some sort of
on a
ventilation.
natural trade route.
Give it
The
some cavity.
rainfall was insufficient to raise crops.
Just find that shape.
Babylon is
That's
an
all right.
outstanding
That's all right.
example of man's ability to achieve great objectives
I'm
using
sorry, play
whatever
with that
means
shape,
are at his
but
disposal.
I'll be doing too much to it.
All of the resources supporting this large city were man-developed. All of its riches were man-made. Babylon possessed just two natural resources: a fertile soil and water in the river. With one of the greatest engineering accomplishments of this or any other day, Babylonian engineers diverted the waters from the river by means of dams and
Kinda.
immense irrigation canals. Far
Kinda.
out across that arid valley went these canals to pour the life-giving waters over the fertile soil. This ranks among the first engineering feats known to history. Such abundant crops as were the reward of this irrigation system the
don't know
world
about
had
this.
never seen before.
What's it look like?
Fortunately, during its long existence, Babylon was ruled by successive lines of kings to whom conquest and plunder were but incidental.
That
While
shape.
it engaged in many wars, most of these were local or defensive against ambitious conquerors from other countries who coveted the fabulous treasures of Babylon. The outstanding rulers of Babylon live in history because of their wisdom, enterprise, and justice. Babylon produced no strutting monarchs who sought to conquer the known world that all nations might pay homage to their egotism. As a city, Babylon exists no more. When those energizing human forces that built and maintained the city for thousands of
catch
years
you
were
later, Ethan.
withdrawn, it soon became a deserted ruin.
Take care, man.
The site of the city is in Asia, about 600 miles east of the Suez Canal, just north
Yeah, I'm
of the
trying to
Persian
figure out
Gulf. The latitude is about
There's some
30
parts that didn't
degrees
quite
above
work.
the
I
equator,
took them out.
roughly the same as that of Yuma, Arizona.
I'm trying
It
to
possessed a
suss
climate
out
similar
this
to that
area.
of
It's
this
been bugging me
American
here.
city, hot and dry.
If I
Today, this valley of the Euphrates, once a populous irrigated farming district, is again a windswept arid waste.
should be able
Scant
to
grass
change
and
this
desert
topology
shrubs
without
strive
breaking
for
anything.
existence against the wind-blown sands.
So if
Gone are
I,
the fertile fields, the mammoth cities, and the long caravans of rich merchandise. Nomadic bands of Arabs securing a scant living by tending small herds are the only inhabitants. Such it has been since about the beginning of the Christian era. Dotting this valley are earthen hills. For centuries, they were considered by travelers to be nothing else. The attention of archaeologists were finally attracted to them because of broken pieces of pottery and brick washed down by the occasional rainstorms. Expeditions financed by European and American museums were sent here to excavate and see what could be found. Picks and shovels soon proved these hills to be ancient cities. City graves, they might well be called. Babylon was one of these. Over it for something like 20 centuries, the winds had scattered the desert dust. Built originally of brick, all exposed walls had disintegrated and gone back to earth once more. Such is Babylon, the wealthy city, today. A heap of dirt, so long abandoned that no living person even knew its name until it was discovered by carefully removing the refuse of centuries from the streets and the fallen wreckage of its noble temples and palaces. Many scientists consider the civilization of Babylon and other cities in this valley to be the oldest of which there is a definite record. Positive dates
I think
have
that would
been
be
proved
alright,
reaching back 8,000 years. An interesting fact
I hate modifying shape
is
after
the
I
means used to determine
change it.
these dates.
I don't know if it's even worth it, but it looks
were descriptions of an eclipse
better.
of the sun. Modern astronomers
Maybe
rarely
I'll,
computed the
pull it
time
down a
when
bit.
such an eclipse, visible in Babylon,
Just a little
occurred,
bit.
and thus
Maybe like
established
that.
a known relationship between their calendar and
This
our
kind of looks like
own.
the Jaguar girls.
In this way, we have proved that 8,000 years ago, the Sumerites who inhabited
I don't know, there's something
Babylonia
funny about the
were
shape that I
living
put
in
here.
walled cities. One
Maybe
can
just
only
open it up like
conjecture
that.
for how many centuries
Nah, it
previous
doesn't
such
work.
cities had existed. Their inhabitants
It's like
were
this
not
one
mere
spot.
barbarians living
Like, the
within
more I look at it, the
protected
more I
walls.
hate it.
They were an educated and enlightened people.
It's just
So
like
far
it's
as written
it's
history
taking a
goes,
while to
they
avail
were the
itself.
first engineers,
I think
the
I'll
first
keep it like
astronomers,
this.
the first
in between-
mathematicians, the first financiers, and
between
the
something.
first people to have a written language. Mention has already been made of the irrigation systems which transformed the arid valley into an agricultural paradise. The remains of these canals can still be traced, although they are mostly filled with accumulated sand. Some of them were of such size
I haven't
that
seen. I
when
think I might have
emptied of
seen Bob
water, a dozen
Lazar.
horses could be ridden abreast
I'm listening
along
to The
the
Richest Man in
waters.
Babylon. It's a good
In
book.
size, they compare favorably with the largest canals in Colorado and Utah. In addition to irrigating the valley lands, Babylonian engineers completed another project of similar
The
magnitude.
Richest Man in Babylon.
By means of an
an
elaborate
oldie.
drainage system, they reclaimed an immense area of swampland at the mouths of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers and put this also under cultivation. Herodotus, the Greek traveler and historian, visited Babylon while it was in its prime and has given us the only known description by an outsider. His writings give a graphic description of the city and some of the unusual customs of its people. He mentions the remarkable fertility of the soil and the bountiful harvest of wheat and barley which they produce. The glory of Babylon has faded, but its wisdom has been preserved for us. For this we are indebted to their form of records. In that distant day, the use of paper had not been invented.
I shouldn't have
Instead, they laboriously engraved their
edited
writing
this
upon
mesh
tablets of
after the
used clay.
fact. I was
When
meant to move on
completed,
with it.
These were baked and became
I really
hard
cornered
packed.
myself.
In size, they were about 6 by 8 inches and an inch in thickness.
You live and learn.
These clay tablets, as they are commonly called, were used much as we use modern forms of writing. Upon them were engraved legends, poetry, history, transcriptions of royal decrees, the laws of the land, titles to property, promissory notes, and even letters which were dispatched by messengers to distant cities. From these clay tablets, we are permitted an insight into the intimate personal affairs of the people. For example, one tablet, evidently from the records of a country storekeeper, relates that upon the given date, a certain named customer brought in a cow and exchanged it for 7 sacks of wheat, 3 being delivered at the time, and the other 4 to await the customer's pleasure. Safely buried in the wrecked cities, archaeologists have recovered entire libraries of these tablets, hundreds of thousands of them. One of the outstanding wonders of Babylon was the immense walls surrounding the city. The ancients ranked them with the Great Pyramid of Egypt as belonging to the 7 wonders of the world. Queen Semiramis is credited with having erected the first walls during the early history of the city. Modern excavators have been unable to find any trace of the original walls, nor is there...
I've listened to some Graham Hancock.
From mention made by early writers, it is estimated they were about 50 to 60 feet high, faced on the outer side with burnt brick.
There's not much difference with exercise, just
of water.
It's just very
later,
efficient.
more famous walls were started about 600 years before
Exercise
the time of
really
Christ
efficient,
by King
but it lacks
Nabonidus.
in a lot of areas.
Upon such a gigantic scale did he plan the rebuilding.
It's just efficient
He
modeling,
did
that's
not
all.
live to see the work finished.
It's just
This
really
was
efficient.
left to his son Nebuchadnezzar, whose name is familiar in biblical history. The height and length of these later walls staggers belief. They are reported upon reliable authority to have been about 160 feet high, the equivalent of the height of a modern 15-story office building. The total length is estimated as between 9 and 11 miles. So wide was the top that a 6-horse chariot could be driven around them. Of this tremendous structure, little now remains except portions of the foundations and the moat. In addition to the ravages of the elements, the Arabs completed the destruction by quarrying the brick for building purposes elsewhere. Against the walls of Babylon marched in turn the victorious armies of almost every conqueror of that age of wars of conquest. A host of kings laid siege to Babylon, but always in vain. Invading armies of that day were not to be considered lightly.
Ugh, what am I doing?
Historians speak of such units as 10,000 horsemen, 25,000 chariots, 1,200 regiments of foot soldiers with 1,000 men.
You gotta suss out how this will
Often
kinda
2 or 3 years of preparation would be
be on the
required to
inside.
assemble war materials and depots of food along the proposed line of march. The city of Babylon was organized much like a modern city. There were streets and shops. Peddlers offered their wares through residential districts. Priests officiated in magnificent temples. Within the city was an
Z-Modeler's alright.
enclosure for the royal palaces.
It's lacking in a lot of ways.
Walls about this were said to have been higher than those about the city. The Babylonians were skilled in the arts. These included
Z-Modeler is,
sculpture, painting, weaving,
yeah, it's
gold working, and the manufacture
I couldn't
of
do
metal
this in
weapons
Z-Modeler.
and agricultural implements.
I think you'd be
Their
hard pressed
jewelers
to
created
do it
most
in Z-Modeler.
artistic jewelry. Many samples have been recovered from the graves of its wealthy citizens and are now on exhibition in the leading museums of the world.
Man, it's
At a
tiring
very
me
early
out, this
period,
design.
when the rest of the world was still hacking
My brain is getting
trees with
tired for it.
stone-headed axes, or hunting and fighting with flint-pointed spears and arrows, the Babylonians were using axes, spears, and arrows with metal heads.
I'm gonna suss
The
out
Babylonians were clever financiers and traders.
what to do.
So far as we know, they were the original inventors of money as a means of exchange, of promissory notes, and written titles to property. Babylon was never entered by hostile armies until about 540 years before the birth of Christ. Even then, the walls were not captured. The story of the fall of Babylon is most unusual. Cyrus, one of the great conquerors of that period, intended to attack the city and hoped to take its impregnable walls. Advisors of Nabonidus, the king of Babylon, persuaded him to go forth to meet Cyrus and give him battle without waiting for the city to be besieged. In the succeeding defeat to the Babylonian army, it fled away from the city. Cyrus thereupon entered the open gates and took possession without resistance. Thereafter, the power and prestige of the city gradually waned until, in the course of a few hundred years, it was eventually abandoned, deserted, left for the winds and storms to level once again to that desert earth from which its grandeur had originally been built. Babylon had fallen, never to rise again, but to it civilization owes much. The eons of time have crumbled to dust the proud walls of its temples, but the wisdom of Babylon endures.
The end.
Oh, it's finished.
You've been listening to The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason, narrated by Richard Ferrone and directed by Ben Ruggiero. If you've enjoyed this book and this performance, Recorded Books recommends The Art of War by Sun Tzu, narrated by Joe Mantegna. This classic of military strategy includes a detailed introduction and commentary on the history of Chinese warfare and military thought. We also recommend Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich, narrated by Christine McMurdo Wallace. Nickel and Dimed reveals low-wage America in all its tenacity, anxiety, and surprising generosity. A land of big boxes, fast food, and 1,000 desperate stratagems for survival. You'll find a wide selection of titles in the Recorded Books catalog, including bestsellers, mysteries, classics, histories, and more. So to order another recorded book, or for a copy of our
Yeah, I'm
latest
familiar with
edition,
Chaos.
please call the toll-free number found on the back of this book. Don't forget to
It's a
ask
different way of modeling.
about easy 30-day rentals by mail. On our website, you can browse our catalog, place orders,
I've used
hear
Marvelous.
about our latest releases.
And I did use the
or
Ramesh show
narrator profiles and author
for
interviews. So visit us there at
for the base mesh.
www.recordedbooks.com.
I'm trying
And
my
thank
best
you
to suss this
for
part
being
out.
a Recorded Books reader.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll just have a see what this looks like with some thickness. It's interesting. This is, I've been really undecisive on, not undecisive, but, oh damn it. Thickened mesh ruined by, oh crap. That's not good. I have to delete them. That didn't work. I'll have to suss it out, so. Don't think it's edible. Oh. Just need to produce a different type of shape here. It's not really working for me. I just want to be able to have some sort of subtract shape going in. There we go. I'm getting happier. Hey Jen. Yeah, I could do a whole robot like this. Normal robots bore me. I don't really want to make a normal robot. There's lots of robots already being made. I want to make something different. But this looks cool. I like that. So I think it's like at the last point you're trying to. There's always these little design things, and you're trying to push, and you get a lot of. It's like it's resistance, and then you get a breakthrough. I'll see if I can do more of it. It seems like if I subtract, push the shape in more. There we go. That's the vent now. Maybe that's the vent. I think this here is the vent. This has to go away. Well, that has. It doesn't make this shape is not making any sense. I think this is the issue. So this has to be. I've probably done too much. I think I can't do any more than that. So I have to actually. No, I'm gonna have to backpedal again. For the sake of. Let's see. I don't know, because I'm not sure what this could be. I'm trying to save this. I'm trying to tie it into the design. It's just like it's the one spot that like fucked up the front of it. Pardon my language. And I was like, there's always that one thing that gets me sometimes. Let's see if we can seal it up. I want to see what it looks like. It's probably going to look better, isn't it? Yeah. Ugh. My gut instinct was telling me the whole time to get rid of that thing. Whole time. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Didn't do it. Just the attachment. You always get those things. Sometimes you get attached to parts and you're like, I'll keep it because it was there in the initial concept. If I lose that, I lose my design. And it's not true. You just make a design better. This is your life lesson, is not to get married to anything. Things can change. Things do change. Your acceptance to go with the flow. It will be a quicker result in you moving along with the process of working on things. You must be loose with your actions. The t-shirt. By breaking rigidity gives rise to fluidity. Alright, let's get this welded up. Weld it up, fix it up, patch it up. Well, it's not too bad. There's a lot of too much manual poly work today because I had to redo things once I subdivided the mesh, which is never a good idea. But I'm hoping it pays off. There's not enough geometry here. What's going on? The count's different. Gotta delete some out. I can stand for a while. I would stand as much as possible. It takes a while to get to like that skill level of thinking and standing, which is, I mean, I just solved a problem just then. Usually, like I think, I don't know, the saying goes you think better on your feet. I don't know if that holds any true, but there's a difference of, you think two different ways. I think one, on your feet, you think different to how you sit. So when you sit, you think differently, and when you stand, you think differently. I think you should exercise both of them. And how you stand is important. I've already made a video on that. It's really important. It's the fundamentals of life. How you stand and walk is fundamental of what makes you a human being. People don't know how to stand. People don't even know how to walk. I didn't know how to walk properly. You know what's really good? If you get a tennis ball and you roll it under your foot. Go and get all your toes. Use all your toes to stretch out your toes with a tennis ball. It's painful. Especially if you got dodgy toes that don't work properly and you haven't been using them. Oh, there's so much extra geometry. I'll have to suss that out. That looks way better. Look at that. Way better. It's a clap-worthy fix. Yeah, your face and your tongue. I used to hold my tongue like that, and it pushed my jaw out. I used to have underbite, but once you start getting your tongue in the right position, it grows your face and everything like that. Exercise, great. I have adjustable table. A block out. Oh, you had a slanted face. My face is a little bit slanted too. But what I found is my foot was also slanted. So like, I would lean. I can do it for you. I'd be like this, like that. That's how I used to stand all the time. But once you start using both your feet and all your toes, I didn't use both my feet and all the toes, so then the whole structure and you kinked, and then it's just like once you throw something off, and then you gotta stretch your neck, make sure everything is loose left and right, and you're standing correct. And eventually, all the years that if you were crooked, it's like you'll start to straighten up, but it's like the toughest thing ever. And one thing I'll suggest you guys to do is stretch your hamstrings. And like I stretch my hamstrings all day long. When I eat, I'll just have my foot up and I'll stretch my hamstrings. Because once you start loosening your hamstrings, the rest of you will loosen up too, and a lot of other things get easier. So if you've got tight hamstrings, but you need to start correcting your posture. Once you start correcting your posture, you can start loosening up your body. You don't want to, if you correct your posture and you don't fix up, I mean, if you start stretching, you don't fix up your posture, you'll probably injure something. There's a reason why your body tightens up, it's to protect itself. So if you don't correct your posture, once you start stretching and things like that, and you're still doing the old habits that made you tight in the first place, and plus stressing makes you, like if you're stressing out over stuff, so you got to get your mindset under control too. If you don't have your mindset under control, you'll probably cause yourself to get sick indirectly through that. What can I do with all this stuff here? So that's kind of a cool vent. Yeah, you're right, Johnny. I used to chew on that side. Hopefully, like, it will take a while to fix. Like, if you take a picture of me, my nose is a little bit crooked and, like, directly straight on. It's going to take years to straighten up, but it will happen. Like, it's like, I don't know, there was a guy in India and he held his hand like this for years and years, for like 30 or 20, like 25 years or 30 years. I don't even, it might have been 40 years, and his whole hand started to change shape and the bones morphed. So that's why your oral posture and your overall posture is really important, because if you have really good posture and you're using your feet, that will change you and make you actually look more presentable and, you know, like everything else, the epitome of a well-structured human being if you have good posture. So, and this is why you shouldn't be sitting, because your neck will come forward and that will change your spine and everything there. And it's really, unless you're holding your tongue in a really good posture, your oral posture, it holds up your neck. But a lot of habits that got you to a bad oral posture, it still has to be trained, and you have to go through that, and it will take you years to train your oral posture. Like, it won't happen overnight. Just because if you start putting your tongue on the roof of your mouth, it's not gonna change your looks overnight. It will take you about 30 years or 20 years, something like that, once you get older. Even 10, I would say 10 years, 10 to 15 years once you get up to your 30s. But at least the funny thing is you'll probably be better looking in your 50s and 40s than you were in your 20s if you had a bad oral posture, which is weird. It is an odd thing to think about. Oh, really, Sol? You seeing improvements? That's cool, man. That's really cool. Make sure you're, because I'm constantly learning. I'm trying to constantly fix. Man, I'm not paying attention to my modeling. Fix my posture, and so what I found today is I got like a tennis ball. Where is it? This. If you get a tennis ball, right? And because if you haven't been using your toes, there's probably a pretty good chance that like if you're on the ground and you just flop your feet like that and you never grip the ground, you don't have any sensory of where the ground is, and your arch is like fallen and stuff like this. If you get the tennis ball, if you've got like flat feet, this would feel probably pretty good for you. You get the tennis ball and you grab it and you push it all inside of your feet, and you have all these muscles running through that they've tightened up over the years. And so once you loosen them up, because a tight muscle is not a functioning muscle, so you have to go through and loosen it all up. This is why it's really good to stretch, because as people, if we sit, the only reason why we're stressed, I mean we're really tight, is because of stress and sitting. We wouldn't be tight otherwise. Our bodies get tightened up, so stress really messes you up. So you should always just absorb stress as something that's it's not really there. It's all made up by your mind. You don't have to study arts. You don't have to study engineering. That would be ridiculous to study. It would help. It would help a lot. But you don't have to. You could just look at some stuff and take it in and learn from it. I have no idea what to do for this shape. No idea. Trying to make this somewhat of a unique shape up here. Trying to think, how can I do to help that along? It's alright, it's kind of working. I'm gonna do like it, somewhat of a unique. I like to complement the shape at the bottom without just making it a bit funny. Yeah, you're right. But people don't really know about M.A.N. And unless you've got a bad bite or something like that, you don't tend to look up that stuff. I don't need to do an overpaint for this. I'm working with simple geometry now, so. I think better in 3D anyway, so. If I do an overpaint, it will just be overcomplicated. Anyway, generally, you'll draw something that will probably take you much longer to do, or you have to like make a lot more changes. Plus, 2D doesn't ever convert as straightforward. It's like if you took a 3D concept, a 2D concept artist converted it over, it takes a long time to convert the 2D concepts. At most, I'll do some line work. I think that's fine. But if I did, I'll just do it in ZBrush. Like, if I did this, I'll give an example of it. I don't feel the point of. I like to work with. Let me save this. I like to work with doing 2D stuff when it's like organics or something something that it's, I don't know, not if it's really complicated, I might as well just get into doing the 3D and realizing it. So how do you make decisions? Trial and error, failing. Like I've already failed here, you guys see me fail. I had to change the front part here. So I had to change it and realize, well, let me do something different. Because ultimately, if I'm... Oh, nice. I'm going to mirror that. I didn't even flip. Yeah, it did. All the geometry is messed up. But if you came in here, I don't know if I can do it without it bogging down. Like, you could easily just come in here and do all your cut lines and stuff like that. Like, I don't see the point of doing 3D, which is actually some pretty cool cut line I just came up with. So to do that cut line, it would be pretty difficult, like that. But it doesn't matter. It's amazing what a cut line can do. And that's how you can do that stuff. There's so many ways. So I could come in here and be like, yeah, I wanted this cut line like that. Right? And then that will fundamentally change how we look at the design. So if we you look at a render, the render has no cut lines because that's the style. It's like this sealed up design. So for me, I'm doing like this real sealed up kind of design with not many cut lines. It's kind of like a fused, everything's fused. Plus, if I add these cut lines, it just adds a bunch of extra work. So you could redo things till the cows come home. It doesn't matter. Like any cut line looks pretty cool here at the moment. But yeah, generally I'll just do this, and if I want to do a paint over. That's what I would do. Made me tempted to add a seam now around here. How the hell would you get that in there? You got it all the way down like that. I might add one, who knows? But who knows? I don't think it's worth it now. I'm almost finished. Alright. I need to suss out what this shape is doing. Maybe I can do something fun with the front end. Because I think I wanted to pull out the something. Doesn't seem right. Feels like it sits. Something like that. Feels better. And then go, little tweaks. Everything's just one tweak away from being balanced or off balance. Generally. The way you balance things in life is really important. Every little detail counts. Almost every little detail. Feels like that. You can't perfect everything. You can get the overall stuff. Get the overall done. You can only do so much. So I'm trying to line this up. A lot of this is just placeholder stuff because I'll be doing some CAD stuff on there. I'm just trying to get some shapes in there. I think that's generally okay, kinda. I think it's working. I don't know if straight's better. I think it's alright. I think it's at that point where I'm happy that I didn't leave it the way it was. See, all these shapes need to be like this problem here Like, need to massage the shape of more. Like, it's a pain in the ass. Like, all these things don't meet up. Getting all these shapes to just play nice. Like, you get these organic shapes mixed in with the hard surface shapes, man. They don't like to work together at all. They really don't. They are tricky. But once you finesse it in place, you're getting that a little bit to line up there. But it's a little bit messy, and I'll clean it up. A bit bumpy. But generally this has to seal on top like it's always been there. Otherwise it's just like, man, it doesn't work. That one's smooth, really fine. I didn't like that. There we go. Give it another smooth. Man, what else going on? That's weird. Smoothing the border. Oh. There we go. It's looking better. Still a bit lumpy. What's going on with that? Why am I using soft image? Just because I prefer it over other stuff. It's just a better application for what I want, really. Yeah, I just like it. For what it is, it's pretty good. Hey Sid, what's going on? I'm probably gonna come off, guys. It's been an hour and 45 minutes, so hope everyone enjoyed the stream, and like and subscribe if you want. I'm gonna try and do a shorter stream probably tomorrow, not too long, because I'm trying not to be distracted with streaming. So I'm focusing a lot lately on work, and so I don't want to come and get distracted too much. But I'm glad you guys all kind of popped on and said hello, and it's all appreciated. And I'll see you guys later on. Hope you guys have a good night or a good morning wherever you are. And yeah, I'll be doing renders for this later. So later, guys. It's been a pleasure.